Hey, what's going on YouTube? My name is Daniel, and today we're going to be taking a look at the cruise line stocks. The cruise line stocks have been really popular on YouTube just because they came so down due to the coronavirus pandemic, and a lot of people have been saying they're really undervalued because they've come down so much. And we're going to be taking a look at whether it's a good investment right now because it has come down so much, and we're going to be taking a look specifically at Carnival Cruise Lines, one of the more popular cruise line stocks. Other than that, I hope you like this video. Just make sure to drop a like and subscribe down below. It really helps out a lot. But other than that, let's get right into the video. So I'm going to be pretty frank in this video. The cruise line industry isn't looking good at all right now. That explains why it's down so much. For example, during Q1 of 2020, Carnival Cruise Lines burned through $410 million. Q1 was from December, January, and February. So they lost money even before the pandemic got serious, which is pretty interesting. So it wasn't doing too well, just from a slight disruption in the cruise line industry. And now it's looking a lot worse for Carnival Cruise Lines. So right now, Carnival Cruise Lines has just said that they're expecting to burn through $650 million in cash every month during the second half of 2020. That's pretty bad for the stock, and here's why. Right now, Carnival Cruise Lines has $1.3 billion in cash on their balance sheet, and they're burning through $650 million per month. That means they're essentially going to be out of cash in 2 months, which is pretty insane if you think about it. However, we do have to consider that Carnival Cruise Lines has some assets known as current assets, which can be converted into cash fairly quickly. And right now they have $1.5 billion in current assets. And that $1.5 billion is going to let them stay alive and operate for a little over than 2 months. So right now, the business has enough assets to essentially live for 4 months. I'm not saying that the company is going to go bankrupt in 4 months. I'm just saying that they have enough cash and stuff that's close enough to cash to survive for 4 months. As of right now, they're on track to be out of cash in 4 months, which is pretty disastrous for the company. And the situation is definitely worse than that. Right now they have $2.6 billion in payables. Essentially they owe $2.6 billion to other companies, and they have $3.3 billion in current debt. So they essentially owe their creditors $3.3 billion, and that's due pretty soon. And that totals up to $5.9 billion. They physically don't have enough current assets and cash on hand in order to cover their short-term debts. So the company is really in a lot of trouble. But there is some hope for the stock, and here's why. They have $44 billion in non-current assets. Essentially, this is referring to their long-term assets, which is mainly their ships and boats that they use to operate their cruise line. So right now, their only option in order to not go bankrupt is to essentially sell off some of their ships so that they have enough cash to stay alive. And that's exactly what they're doing right now. According to the Motley Fool, Carnival Cruise Lines started selling its ships. They recently sold 6 ships, and they're planning to sell more in the future just so they can stay alive. And that's their only option right now in order to really stay alive. Do I think that they're going to be bankrupt anytime soon? I'm guessing not. They have $44 billion of ships that they can potentially sell. Obviously, they don't want to sell a lot of them because that's how they make money. Without their ships, they can't make money. So it's a really bad thing that they have to sell their ships. But theoretically, they could go on and sell their ships for about, I'm estimating if the situation doesn't get worse, too much worse or too much better, as long as it stays around this level, they can stay alive for about 4 years at the maximum. And once again, that's assuming that the situation doesn't change dramatically or they become profitable anytime soon. So they essentially have a fair amount of time to get themselves back on their feet. And I can see a very realistic scenario where they don't make it out alive. Let's say that the coronavirus doesn't go away for many years into the future, and that's realistically possible if we don't get a vaccine. Then they're going to continue to burn cash. So bankruptcy definitely does seem like a possibility, but I can't say that's going to happen for sure. It's realistic, but not 100% going to happen. There's still a chance for the cruise line to make it out alive. But the situation situation really isn't getting much better at all for the cruise line. Recently, an association of cruise lines announced that they are voluntarily suspending all trips out of US ports until September 15th. So initially, cruise lines were expecting to start operating again early July. But now that's not the case, and they're pushing that back all the way to September 15th. So this is a huge setback for Carnival Cruise Lines and all cruise lines in general, because they're not going to be able to get business, and they're just going to continue to burn cash because they still have to cover a lot of their expenses for maintaining their cruise lines and ships. So right now they're in a very, very bad situation, at least up in the short term. And even if the situation does get better and they do reopen, it's not going to look too much better for the cruise line. So in order for them to reopen, right, they have to maintain social distancing guidelines. Like when you go to the store, you have to stay 6 feet apart from everyone else. It's going to be something like that in the cruise lines as well. And some people are saying that due to the social distancing guidelines, their capacity is going to be cut by a third. A third is a huge chunk of their business that's automatically gone. And if you think about it, that's going to make their ships a lot less profitable, because each ship is going to be generating significantly less revenue. So this can potentially be a huge hit for Carnival Cruise Lines, and it's possible that it'll prevent them from becoming profitable even if they do reopen. And you also have to keep in consideration that the unemployment rate is still terrible right now. A lot of people don't have jobs, and going on a cruise line is going to be the last thing on people's minds right now. And there's a lot of fear for people to travel right now, especially if it's unnecessary. And given that the unemployment rate is so high right now, a lot of people don't have money to even travel, or they want to just stay more conservative with their spending and just try to save as much money as possible just in case they lose their job or something bad happens. So a lot of people right now are not going to spend their money to go on a cruise, which makes cruise lines a very risky investment right now. And right now the numbers are just flat out not looking good for Carnival Cruise Lines. They recently announced that they did $700 million in revenue, and that's $700 million is a lot of revenue, but for a company that's currently valued at a market capitalization of $13 billion, that's not a lot of money. And especially when their situation is going to get worse, at least in the short term, because they're closing down, it's not going to look pretty for them at all. And they pose a huge loss of $6 per share. So I mean, the situation right now is definitely not looking good for the stock. And my overall verdict with this stock is that I would not invest in it. I feel like there are too many downsides and risks with the stock, and I don't see a clear path that's going to take them to profitability, at least in the near future. I just don't see a path where the company is getting back to its original state, or at least where it's worth $13 billion today. I just don't see them making a lot of money in the future given everything that's going on right now. But I could be totally wrong. It's possible that something could dramatically change the whole situation, and this could become a really good stock. I just feel like there's too much uncertainty and risk with this stock to make it a good investment. But let me know what you think of this stock down in the comments below. I really want to hear your thoughts on Carnival Cruise Lines and just the cruise industry in general. And just make sure to drop a like on this video and subscribe. It really helps out a lot.